Let's go Dolphins! Something strange is happening around the Miami Dolphins right now, and a lot of fans are starting to feel like the entire NFL world has already given up on this franchise before the 2026 season even begins. ESPN just released projections that basically paint Miami as the worst team in football, and honestly, some of the things they said are so disrespectful that it's creating serious controversy among Dolphins fans. We're talking about brutal win predictions, shocking player projections, and even claims that the Dolphins could finish with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. But here's the crazy part. What if all this hate becomes the fuel that completely changes Miami's season? Because behind the scenes, there are people inside this organization who truly believe the Dolphins are building something much more dangerous than outsiders realize. And what I'm about to tell you regarding Malik Willis, Devin Achane, and this young roster might completely change how you view the 2026 season. But before we continue, make sure you hit that like button if you still believe the Miami Dolphins can shock the NFL this year. And I want every optimistic Dolphins fan to comment this right now. I still believe in aqua and orange. Let's see how many real believers are still riding with Miami no matter what happens this season. Now let's get straight into the chaos ESPN created. According to these projections, Miami's offense was graded dead last in the league despite having one of the most explosive running backs in football in Devin Achane. ESPN gave the Dolphins running back room only a 7 out of 10, which honestly makes no sense considering Achane is viewed by many as a top 5 running back talent entering this season. And it gets even crazier when you remember Miami also has Jaylen Wright and Ollie Gordon as complementary weapons. This backfield is one of the few strengths on the roster, yet ESPN still treated it like an average group. Then there's the linebacker situation. ESPN gave that unit a surprisingly low grade too, even with Jordan Brooks leading the group after his all-pro level production and the addition of promising rookies that many league insiders are already praising. Some people inside Miami genuinely believe this could become one of the better linebacker groups in football if development goes according to plan. But apparently ESPN doesn't see it that way at all. And wait until you hear the projected game probabilities because this is where Dolphins fans really started losing their minds. Miami reportedly does not have over a 35% win probability in any game this season according to ESPN's model. They give the Dolphins only a 27% chance to beat the Raiders in Week 1 and just a 20% chance against the Jets on the road. The disrespect continues with Miami having only a 15% chance to beat the Patriots at home and an 11% chance against the Lions at home. That's the kind of projection that immediately makes fans feel like analysts didn't even study the roster deeply enough before making predictions. And this is where things get really interesting. ESPN analyst Mike Clay projected Malik Willis to throw for 3,500 yards with 13 touchdowns and 11 interceptions while adding 540 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Those are not catastrophic numbers, but they're also not franchise quarterback numbers either. If Miami really finishes with only 2 wins while Willis produces those stats, the Dolphins could realistically be staring directly at the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And you already know what that means. The quarterback conversation would completely explode in Miami. Names like Arch Manning, Darian Mensah, C.J. Carr, and Dante Moore are already quietly being discussed by fans thinking ahead to the future. That's how quickly things can change in the NFL. One disappointing season and suddenly the entire direction of the franchise comes into question. But here's the part Dolphins fans might actually love. Devin Achane's projections were much more optimistic. ESPN predicted 1,300 rushing yards, 500 receiving yards, and 8 total touchdowns for Achane in 2026. And honestly, those numbers feel realistic, especially after Miami committed to improving the trenches by adding players like Caden Proctor and Will Kazma while also extending Achane and fully committing to him as one of the faces of the offense moving forward. Meanwhile, rookie receivers Chris Bell and Caleb Douglas received identical projections from ESPN, both expected to finish with 44 catches, 582 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's fascinating because it suggests analysts expect both young receivers to have almost equal impact in this offense. And considering Bell is still recovering from a torn ACL while Douglas remains a developing prospect, those projections might actually surprise some fans in a positive way. Then there's Greg Dulcich, who ESPN projected for 49 receptions and 540 yards after finishing last season strongly. Dolphins leadership reportedly believes Dulcich can take a major step forward in 2026, and if that happens, Miami's offense may look far more dangerous than national analysts are predicting right now. But the defensive projections may have created the biggest controversy of all. Chop Robinson was projected to lead the team with 8 sacks. That part seems fair enough. But then ESPN projected Robert Beal Jr. to produce more than rookie Trey Moore and even suggested Lonnie Johnson Jr. would start at safety most of the season. That's where many Dolphins fans completely checked out of these predictions because internally, there's strong belief that Trey Moore will have a much bigger role than Beal this season. And honestly, this entire situation creates a massive storyline heading into 2026. Because now the Dolphins have something they haven't had in a while, absolutely nobody believing in them nationally. That can either destroy a locker room or completely fuel it. And this is exactly why the pressure inside the Dolphins organization is going to be enormous throughout the entire 2026 season. Because once national analysts start projecting you as the worst team in football, every single game suddenly becomes personal. Every locker room speech becomes emotional. Every win becomes a statement. And honestly, there's a real chance this roster uses all of this negativity as motivation. The biggest question now surrounds Malik Willis. Because whether fans want to admit it or not, the entire direction of the franchise may depend on how he performs this season. ESPN's projections suggest he'll struggle with turnovers while putting up average passing production. But here's the thing nobody is talking about enough. This is the first time Willis is stepping into a situation where the offense is truly built around his mobility and athleticism. Miami is expected to lean heavily on the run game, quick passing concepts, and design quarterback movement to maximize what he does best. That's why Devin Achane could become one of the most dangerous offensive weapons in the NFL this season. The Dolphins clearly doubled down on their rushing attack after investing in the offensive line and committing fully to Achane as the centerpiece of the offense. And if Miami's offensive line really improves physically the way many people inside the organization believe it will, Achane may completely outperform ESPN's already strong projections. But there's another layer to this story that Dolphins fans are starting to realize. The younger players are going to define this season. Chris Bell, Caleb Douglas, Trey Moore, Caden Proctor, Kenneth Grant. These are no longer just developmental names sitting quietly in the background. They are now critical pieces for Miami's future. If even 2 or 3 of these young players explode earlier than expected, the entire perception of this roster changes overnight. And honestly, I think that's what ESPN may have underestimated the most. They projected Miami almost entirely based on current public perception instead of possible internal development. Because rebuilding teams in the NFL are unpredictable. Sometimes they collapse completely. But sometimes young talent develops faster than expected and suddenly a team everyone mocked becomes competitive much sooner. Take Greg Dulcich, for example. ESPN projected him for nearly 50 receptions and over 500 yards after his strong finish last season. That may not sound massive at first, but for a Dolphins offense desperately looking for reliable targets, that type of production could become huge for Malik Willis. A dependable tight end often becomes a young quarterback's best friend. And if Dulcich becomes that security blanket consistently, Miami's passing game may stabilize faster than people think. Defensively, the biggest concern still remains the pass rush and safety room. Even Dolphins fans admit those areas could become major problems. But this is why Chop Robinson's development matters so much. If he truly delivers an 8-sack season or more, it changes the entire ceiling of this defense. Miami doesn't necessarily need an elite